While most people are literally burning their hard-earned cash on luxury SUVs that are ticking time bombs, a few smart buyers are laughing all the way to the bank account. The used car market is currently trapping thousands of victims into $1,000 monthly payments for over-engineered trash that spends more time on a tow truck than on the highway. But today, we are exposing the 5 luxury SUVs that the dealers hate to talk about. These are absolute gems that look like $1 million, feel like a private jet inside, and are shockingly cheap to buy right now because the market is totally asleep. We are talking about bulletproof engines and heavy-duty hardware that veteran mechanics are quietly buying for their own families for under 10 grand. Forget the marketing lies and the fancy badges that come with financial ruin. I'm showing you the survivors that will run forever while your neighbors drown in repair bills. Number 5. Lincoln MKX. This is the old-school luxury SUV buyers keep skipping, and that is exactly why the value feels almost unfair today. The Lincoln badge lost heat, shoppers chased newer crossovers, and the MKX got pushed into the corner like it did something wrong, even though the right years are still one of the cheaper ways to get real leather, quiet road manners, and a drivetrain that does not act like it needs weekly therapy. We center this pick on 2013 through 2015 because the 2015 still gives us the proven 3.7-liter V6 and a 6-speed automatic, which is the kind of simple setup this channel trusts more than fancy promises. In the garage, this is the SUV we see bought by men who are done proving things. They want a seat that sits higher, a cabin that feels plush on a long drive, and enough comfort to make bad pavement feel less rude. The MKX does that job quietly. It is not trying to be sporty. It is trying to feel smooth, silent, and expensive from the driver's seat, and that matters when you spend real hours behind the wheel. Subscribe to our channel and get the best deals. The drivetrain story is the whole reason it belongs here. The 3.7 V6 makes about 305 horsepower, pulls cleanly, and avoids the small turbo stress stories that can turn used luxury into a money pit. The 6-speed automatic is not flashy, but that is the point. Boring can be beautiful when you are the one paying the repair bill. Properly equipped, the all-wheel drive version can tow up to about 3,500 pounds, which means a small trailer or light weekend load is no drama. Another reason we like this window is that public reliability data still treats the 2015 well, with a 4 out of 5 Repair Pal score through Edmunds, and that lines up with what we want from a budget luxury truck. Fewer surprise visits, less weird electronic drama, and a calmer ownership story. You also get real luxury touches for the money, heated and cooled front seats on many examples, a roomy second row, and a ride that feels more expensive than the badge suggests. On the highway, the cabin stays fairly quiet, and that matters when you are stacking miles every week. The market forgot this thing, but the comfort did not disappear. Price is where this thing gets almost ridiculous. A used 2015 MKX is commonly sitting around $8,199 to $13,656, and that is used family sedan money for a luxury SUV that originally started just under $40,000 when new. That gap is the whole emotional hook. Buyers will hand over more money for the same era Lexus RX or Acura RDX because the badges feel safer, but the Lincoln can give you more equipment and more softness for thousands less. And here is the sneaky advantage. Because the badge cooled off, sellers often price it like a loaded Ford, not a luxury SUV, which lets you buy softer leather, calmer road manners, and more features than the money usually buys in this class. That does not mean we buy blindly. We stay away from using the latter 2016 through 2018 MKX as the main recommendation, because those years fall into the rear. Brake hose recall story. And that is exactly the kind of thing smart buyers respect instead of ignoring. Inspection time is simple. First, crawl under and look around the axle and PTU area for wetness, because leaks there can turn a cheap deal into a costly one. Second, run the AC hard and make sure it blows cold and steady, because a weak climate system ruins the whole luxury point fast. Third, on the test drive, feel the brakes and pedal travel carefully, because anything soft, long, or uneven needs attention. Fourth, read the service history like it matters, because it does, and a calm paper trail usually tells you the whole ownership story. If the records look patchy, the tires are mismatched, and the cabin feels neglected, we walk. If it feels cared for, this is one of those rare luxury buys that can still make sense. And if you think this bargain is good, wait until the next SUV, because it looks sportier, feels sharper, and still sells for used sedan money. If this straight talk saves you money, subscribe. we spotlight cheaper luxury SUVs, proven drivetrains, and the inspection checks that stop painful mistakes today first. Number 4. Infiniti QX70. This is the luxury SUV people buy when they want BMW looks without BMW repair, math. And that is why the QX70 feels like a secret bargain today. It still looks expensive, it still has that long hood, short roof, planted stance thing working for it, and it still drives like somebody in the engineering department actually cared about steering feel. That is why this one hurts the market so much. Buyers see an older Infiniti badge, assume the truck is yesterday's news, then skip it for a prestige name that comes with a prettier logo and a much uglier ownership story. We focus on 2015 through 2017 because the 2017 QX70 still gives us the proven 3.7-liter V6 and 7-speed automatic. And that combo is exactly the kind of strong old-school setup we want in a used luxury SUV. It makes about 325 horsepower, has enough shove to feel quick on an on-ramp, and because it is naturally aspirated, you are not buying into the smaller turbo pressure cooker logic that can turn a fancy deal into a painful one later. In our world, this is the buyer who wants something that feels special every morning, but does not want to spend German money every time a light flashes. He wants a cabin that still feels tight, seats that hold him in place, and a chassis that feels sharp instead of sleepy. The QX70 does that. It is not the roomiest thing in the class, and that actually helps explain why it got cheaper. Families moved toward boxier crossovers. Infiniti lost a lot of brand heat in the United States after its stronger years, and this model aged out while the market chased softer, taller, more anonymous SUVs. That is exactly where the value comes from. The truck did not suddenly get bad, the crowd just moved on. Public reliability data still treats the 2017 QX70 well, with a 4 out of 5 Repair Pal score shown through Edmunds, and that lines up with the reason we are here. We are not chasing a miracle. We are chasing a proven V6, an automatic in a body people forgot to respect. Price is where this thing becomes really interesting. A used 2017 QX70 commonly lands around $10,200 to $17,757, with average asking prices usually sitting in the low to mid-teens, depending on miles history and whether it is rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. That is used sedan money for something that still looks like it should be parked next to an X5, a Q5, or a GLE. And that is the emotional hook. People want the BMW image, the Audi badge, the Mercedes driveway shot, but they do not want the repair math that can come with those names once miles stack up. With the QX70, you are buying the more boring badge and getting the more comfortable answer for your wallet. Fuel economy is not the selling point here, and we should be honest about that. Expect roughly 18 miles per gallon combined in the 2017, with ratings around 16 city and 22 highway. So this is not the thrift king. But if you are shopping for luxury SUVs from this era, nobody bought them because they sip fuel like a compact. They bought them because they feel silent, solid, and expensive on the road, and the Infiniti still delivers that. Another quiet plus is the way the 7-speed behaves when the truck has been cared for, because it does not need to feel flashy to feel right. You want clean, timely fluid history, and you want shifts that stay quick, clean, and predictable under load consistently. First, look for oil seepage around the engine and underneath, because neglected leaks are how cheap luxury turns costly. Second, test the camera, screen, and audio functions every single time, because aging infotainment can become annoying even when the drivetrain is strong. Third, verify brake recall work or brake service history looks complete, and make sure the pedal feels firm and straight under a hard stop. Fourth, inspect tire wear closely, especially on trucks with larger wheels, because big luxury tire bills can erase the deal fast. If the tires are chopped, the history is fuzzy, and the electronics act weird, we walk. But if it feels clean, tracks straight, and shifts smoothly, this is one of those rare used luxury SUVs that still gives you style without turning ownership into a hobby. And if you think this one is easy to justify, wait until the next pick, because it is more family-friendly, easier to explain to your spouse, and somehow even smarter for the long haul. Number 3. Cadillac XT5. This is the quiet luxury SUV nobody brags about at dinner, and that is exactly why the used numbers make so much sense today. The XT5 is stronger than people think, softer priced than people expect, and built around the kind of proven hardware that makes a used luxury buy feel less like gambling and more like planning. We focus on 2019 through 2020, because those are the years where the value story gets really good without asking you to trust some complicated experiment. The 2019 gives you Cadillac's naturally aspirated 3.6-liter V6 with an 8-speed automatic, and the refreshed 2020 keeps that V6, but moves to a 9-speed automatic. That matters because the whole point of this pick is buying a real luxury cabin with a strong engine that does not need tiny turbo pressure to feel awake. In the garage, this is the SUV for the guy who wants comfort first, not bragging rights. He wants a cabin that feels plush on the morning commute, a seat that stays supportive after 200 miles, and a ride that makes rough pavement feel less rude. The XT5 does that job quietly. It is not loud about anything, and that is part of the reason it got cheaper. Buyers run straight to the BMW X3 or Audi Q5 because those names feel hotter, sharper, and more status-friendly. Meanwhile, the Cadillac sits there, giving you more room, a calmer ride, and a naturally aspirated V6 for less money. You are not buying the badge your neighbor expects. You are buying the one that makes more sense after the warranty glow fades. Public reliability data has treated the 2019 and 2020 XT5 well, with 4.5 out of 5 Repair Pal ratings shown through Edmunds, and that lines up with why we like this window. It is not perfect, nothing used is, but it is one of those rare premium SUVs where the ownership story can stay steady if the records are clean and the truck was not neglected. Price is where this thing really lands. Used 2019 XT5 examples commonly sit around $14,812 to $23,397, depending on miles, trim, and condition. That is a big deal, because you are shopping in the same money zone as loaded mainstream crossovers, yet getting leather, quieter road manners, and a cabin that still feels upscale. When new, these were comfortably above $40,000, so the depreciation hit has already done the hard work for you. Another reason this buy makes sense is size. The XT5 is one of those in-between SUVs that feels easier to live with than a larger 3-row, but still gives you real cargo space, and a second row adults can actually tolerate. That makes it easier to justify at home too. A spouse who does not care about badges can still see the win immediately. The cabin is roomy, the step-in height feels easy, the controls are simple enough to use without a lecture, and many trims give you heated seats, a power liftgate, and solid daily tech. That softer market also comes from image, not from some fatal flaw. Cadillac does not carry the same imported prestige in many buyers' minds, so the XT5 gets treated like a consolation prize when it should be treated like a value play. For a man who wants quiet highway miles, easy access, and seat comfort without German repair roulette, that is an advantage. You get a cabin that feels mature, doors that shut with a solid thunk, and manners that stay calm instead of trying to prove something at every stoplight. Fuel economy is not the headline, but the V6 is not a disaster either, with many examples rated around 21 miles per gallon combined and up to about 26 highway and front-wheel drive form. That means you are not buying a thirsty dinosaur just to get comfort. Inspection time matters here. First, run the AC hard and let it sit at idle, because weak cooling ruins the whole luxury mission in 5 minutes. Second, start it cold and listen for any rough idle, or watch for a check engine light because a dirty running luxury SUV is never a bargain. Third, test the liftgate, backup camera, and screen response every time, because convenience tech that acts weird becomes annoying fast. Fourth, look hard at the tires and alignment story. Big tire bills can erase a cheap deal quickly, and uneven wear tells you more than a salesman ever will. On the drive, pay attention to how the transmission behaves. You want shifts that feel clean and smooth, not hesitant, not jumpy, not confused. If it tracks straight, cools properly, and the service history looks calm, this is one of those overlooked luxury SUVs that can make a smart buyer look like he spent much more than he did. And if you think this Cadillac is easy to defend, wait until the next pick, because in some markets it is even cheaper, and its drivetrain is the exact kind old school buyers usually trust longer. Subscribe if you want the garage truth. We compare badge hype, used prices, and real weak spots, so you buy comfort without expensive surprises today. Number 2. Acura RDX. This is the luxury SUV most people underestimate because it looks too normal, and that is exactly why it becomes such a smart buy. The RDX does not scream for attention, it does not flex some giant grille, and it does not try to sell you a fake sporty story with a badge alone. It just sits there looking clean, sensible, and a little too familiar, which is why buyers walk right past it and toward flashier names that usually age worse and cost more to keep alive. That mistake is where the value lives. We anchor this pick on 2016 through 2018, especially the 2017, because that version still gives you Acura's 3.5-liter V6 and 6-speed automatic. And that is the kind of proven, old-school luxury hardware we trust when the goal is longer ownership, not lease brochure excitement. That V6 makes 279 horsepower. It pulls with real confidence, and it avoids the smaller turbo stress that showed up later in the class. The 6-speed automatic is another reason this thing works, because it behaves like a normal, sorted transmission instead of trying to be clever, and that means daily driving feels smooth, not busy. In our shop world, this is the SUV for the guy who wants an upgrade that still feels logical. He wants leather, quiet cruising, and a badge that feels nicer than mainstream, but he also wants to open the hood and see something that does not make him regret his life choices. The RDX hits that sweet spot. It is luxurious enough to feel like a real step up from a loaded CR-V or Highlander, but underneath it still feels honest, like a well-sorted Acura or Honda product built by people who expected owners to keep it. That matters. When you are buying used, normal can be beautiful. The market keeps rewarding the wrong things. Buyers will pay more for a used Lexus NX because the shape feels newer, or an Audi Q5 because the badge feels sharper, or even a loaded mainstream SUV. After all, the seller talks them into all the options. Meanwhile, the RDX sits there with a V6, a conventional automatic, a roomy cabin, and the kind of straightforward ownership story that makes more sense 5 years later. Public reliability data is still friendly to the RDX, with strong repair pal and owner review signals, and that lines up with why older Acura buyers stay loyal. Price is the punchline. A used 2017 RDX commonly lands from about $11,500 to $18,795, with many decent examples sitting right in the middle of that band. That is a huge deal, because you are shopping in the same money zone as much less interesting crossovers, yet getting a premium badge, real comfort, and a drivetrain that is easier to trust than a lot of trendy rivals. Fuel economy is respectable too, with front-wheel drive versions rated around 20 miles per gallon city and 28 highway. So you are not buying some thirsty mistake just to get that V6 feel. The other quiet advantage is ownership mood. The RDX does not make you nervous every time a warning light flickers in the corner of your eye, because the basic recipe is familiar, and familiar is good when you are paying. Acura, as a brand, also keeps a strong reputation for above-average durability, and the RDX benefits from that halo in the real world. Another point buyers miss is size. This thing is compact enough to park without stress, but it does not feel cramped inside, and that makes it easier to live with than some stylish luxury crossovers that punish you with tiny rear seats and small cargo space. The all-wheel drive versions are also easy to justify in snow states, because you get extra weather confidence without stepping up to a heavier, thirstier three-row you never needed in the first place for your real daily routine. Another reason this Acura lands so well is that the cabin ages with dignity. The seats are supportive, the controls are simple, and the second row is actually usable for adults on a real trip. It is not trying too hard, and that helps it age better than luxury interiors that chase every design fad. You step in, shut the door, and the whole thing feels tight, calm, and ready to work. Inspection time is where we protect the deal. First, drive it over rough pavement and listen for front-end clunks, because sway bar links can start talking, and that is a useful negotiation point even when it is not a disaster. Second, test the infotainment speed, backup camera, and Bluetooth response, because older luxury tech that lags or freezes becomes annoying every single day. Third, study the maintenance history carefully, because a steady record tells you the last owner treated it like a keeper, not a disposable appliance. Fourth, watch the tire wear and steering feel. If it pulls, wanders, or shows odd inner edge wear, you may be buying alignment work and rubber sooner than you think. Also, pay attention to how the transmission behaves when it's warm. It should shift cleanly, not lurch, not hesitate, and not feel confused in traffic. If the truck tracks straight, idles smoothly, and the service file looks calm. This is one of the easiest luxury SUVs in this whole price range to recommend with a straight face. And here is the kicker. Number 1 costs more, yes, but it is the one most mechanics would trust to cross 3 states tomorrow without a second thought, and that is why it takes the top spot today. Number 1. Lexus X350. This is the one people argue with me about, because on paper it is the least dirt-cheap SUV on this list, and that is exactly why it belongs at number 1. The RX 350 is the expensive, cheap one. It costs more up front than the Lincoln, the Infiniti, or the Acura, and some buyers stop thinking right there. Big mistake. Cheap to buy and smart to own are not the same thing, and this Lexus is the cleanest example of that whole lesson. We target 2017 through 2019 because those years give us the 3.5-liter V6, the 8-speed automatic, and the kind of quiet, sorted, longer-term ownership story most luxury SUVs only pretend to offer. In the garage, this is the SUV we recommend to the guy who is tired of gambling. He does not want to wonder which module is next, or which turbo hose is about to split, or why a routine service visit suddenly costs more than a family vacation. He wants something that feels plush, tracks straight, stays silent at highway speed, and still has a real chance of being there for him at 200,000 miles, if he does his part. The RX does that better than almost anything else in this class. The market keeps confusing prestige with ownership quality, and that confusion is where careful buyers win. People will hand over stronger money for a used G, LE, X5, or Q7, because those names sound more serious at the coffee shop, even when the Lexus is the one that usually causes less stress once the miles stack up. You are not buying the cheapest luxury SUV on the lot. You are buying the one that is most likely to still feel like a luxury SUV after a few more years of real life. That difference matters. The 2017 RX 350 uses a 3.5-liter V6, making about 295 horsepower, and it is paired with an 8-speed automatic. That combination is a big reason this thing keeps getting recommended by people who actually keep vehicles. It pulls with enough force to feel easy on an on-ramp, but it never feels strained or brittle. There is no tiny engine trying to act bigger than it is. There is no drama to the power delivery. It just feels smooth, clean, and confident, which is exactly what you want in a daily luxury SUV. Front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive versions both exist, so Snow State buyers still have options without stepping into something heavier and thirstier than they need. Fuel economy is solid for a V6 luxury SUV too, with many 2017 front-wheel drive examples rated around 20 miles per gallon city and 27 highway, for about 23 combined. That is not miracle mileage, but it is good enough that you are not paying a huge comfort tax every week just to enjoy real luxury. The other thing people forget is how much actual SUV you are getting for the money. The RX gives you a roomy second row, a cargo area that handles real life, and a ride that stays comfortable without going floaty. The seats matter too. Lexus knows how to build a front seat you can live in for hours, and that becomes obvious about 40 minutes into a long trip when a lot of rivals start feeling too firm, too narrow, or too restless. The cabin is another reason it wins number 1. Doors shut with that solid, expensive feel, road noise stays low, and the whole vehicle seems built around the idea that a luxury SUV should lower your blood pressure, not raise it. It is not trying to perform luxury. It just feels settled. One more reason old school buyers love this RX is the overall road feel. At 80 miles an hour, it feels planted, not nervous. Over broken pavement, it stays composed, not crashy. The steering is not sporty, but it is relaxed in the best way, which suits the whole mission. This is the kind of luxury SUV that makes a long day feel shorter and a rough week feel lighter for you. Reliability is where the whole case closes. Public reliability data remains strong for the 2017 RX 350, with Repair Pal ratings shown through Edmunds at 4.5 out of 5 and cost figures lower than average for the class. That tracks with what this channel is really about. We are not chasing fantasy numbers. We are looking for a used premium SUV that keeps its owner out of needless trouble. The RX has been building that reputation for years, and these target years still sit in the sweet spot before you start drifting into more expensive late model pricing. Now the money part. A used 2017 RX 350 commonly lands around $19,369 to $27,989, with many examples clustering in the mid-20s depending on miles, trim, and history. That is, more than the other SUVs in this video. Yes, but here is why that matters less than people think. Compare it to a similar year GLE, X5, or Q7, and the Lexus still undercuts what many buyers end up paying for those trucks once options, condition, and mileage line up. Then add the usual repair math later, and the gap gets even uglier for the prestige badge crowd. That is why I call this the expensive cheap one. It is not dirt cheap in a vacuum. It is dirt cheap by luxury SUV standards once you zoom out and look at the whole ownership picture. It also holds value better, and some buyers hate hearing that because they want a bargain that nobody else noticed. But stronger resale is part of the reason the RX is such a smart buy. It means the market already knows this thing usually ages well. You are paying more because it is usually worth more for longer. That is not a flaw. That is the whole point. Another quiet win is how easy it is to justify at home. A spouse sees the Lexus badge, the roomy cabin, the smooth ride, and the easy step in height, and the conversation gets simpler. It is practical enough for family duty, quiet enough for road trips, and classy enough that it still feels like an upgrade every single morning. This is not one of those used luxury SUVs that feel old and tired the second you sit in it. It still feels current in the ways that matter. Controls are mostly intuitive, visibility is decent for the class, and the liftgate, camera, and driver assistance features on many examples make daily use less annoying. That does not mean we buy blindly. Inspection time is where the smart money protects itself. First, verify that the fuel pump recall and brake assist recall work were completed, because paperwork matters, and free fixes are only useful if they were actually done. Second, on the drive, pay close attention to any weird surging delayed response or flat spot from the transmission or throttle. You want power delivery that feels smooth and predictable, not hesitant or confused. Third, study the service history. This SUV earns its reputation when people maintain it properly, and a calm record with regular oil changes and fluid services tells you the last owner did not cheap out. Fourth, test the electronics and the power liftgate. Luxury convenience features that stop working turn into an expensive irritation fast. Fifth, look hard at tire wear and alignment. Uneven edges, steering pull, or vibration at speed means hidden money. If the RX tracks straight, shifts cleanly, idles quietly, and the records look honest, this is one of the safest luxury SUV buys in the whole used market. That is why it takes number one. The market keeps confusing badge prestige with ownership quality, and this Lexus is the best proof that careful buyers can still beat that game. Before you leave, subscribe. We break down reliable luxury bargains, target the smart years, and show quick checks that protect your wallet. Click the video on your screen. We'll show the luxury SUVs worth buying now, the trims to target, and the mistakes that turn cheap deals costly.